We are speaking with Dr. Armand Gonzalez here in Chicago. Last Sunday, good doctor, you gave a fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Which was titled Workflow Management EMR Systems and the Primary Care Physician. It was in McCormick Center, and it was part of the 2009 HIMSS conference. And as good as your presentation was, the questions were even better. They just lined up.
I agree. I was very surprised at the numbers of physicians and vendors that had really good questions, really thorough digging questions, and
they seemed excited about workflow.
Yeah, and I was very surprised that so many people were even considering workflow as an important part of the healthcare industry. But of course, we're the last of corporate America to adopt information technology, so I think people are trying to catch up. And workflow or business process management has been part of corporate America for many, many years. I think I gave a little history of terminology and how all these things came about, and how it's become now an intricate part of electronic medical record pursuit. So workflow is very important.
And here were some of the questions.
Okay.
And some of them were just about EHRs in general. Some of them were about workflow management systems.
Right.
And so just if you could speak to that in general, and then if you want to say something about EncounterPro specifically, great.
Okay.
The first question was, how did the patients react?
Well, the patients really were very pleased to see a system. None of them had ever seen an electronic medical record system in the past, and so they were very surprised to see how fast and how accurate and how efficient the system was when it came to care for their child. The fact that I could pull up their vaccine records at the touch of a screen, the fact that I could give them letters to return to school, I could print out asthma action plans for them, I could show them past laboratory that they had, that I could net link to educational sites and decision support tools involving diagnoses that their children had. They were extremely pleased at my acquisition of an EMR.
That was the first question.
Yeah.
And the second question was, is it easy or hard to change your workflow?
It's easy, because if you have a system with workflow management functionality, you don't have to change your workflow. In fact, the system merges with your workflow. And what I didn't say was that in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, medicine came out with the SOAP method of interviewing patients, subjective, objective assessment and plan. And EncounterPro literally follows that method. And so there's really no change in how primary care physicians, how the workflow in a primary care office, it doesn't have to change its workflow at all, because EncounterPro literally copies that workflow.
Well, about the fifth question is how long have you been using it, and have you ever been tempted to change?
I've been using it for approximately 10 years. I saw it in New Orleans, November of 1999, and I've been using it pretty much ever since. I bought it right on the spot, and it was installed in January 2000, and I have had no concern or interest in changing, because I've looked at lots of EMRs. I've been to a lot of HIMSS conferences, a lot of medical conferences in general. Every other system I've seen, aside from EncounterPro, does not have workflow management. They're all Hunt and Peck.
Hunt and Peck, huh?
All of them. Yeah.
Can you have different workflow for different patients?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, based on patient diagnostics, based on the role of the person seeing the patient, there's a different workflow. For example, if a patient only comes in for a weight check, there's a different workflow. If a patient comes in only to have a vaccine catch-up, there's a different workflow. The physician assistant that works for me has a different workflow. And so we can remove steps in the definition table based on who's seeing the patient, and we can actually have subsets of workflow where you can have a clinical subset of workflow or an administrative subset of workflow depending on what you're doing. So it's not just an overall workflow, you can actually have little workflows leading away, and that's all customizable.
Is it difficult to keep the system up to date with respect to codes and drugs?
No, it's very simplistic, and it allows the user to do it. You don't have to worry about calling the vendor for everything. In fact, I don't really call. The only time I call support is when my backups aren't starting. And so whenever I restart my server, for some reason my backups don't start, and I have to call the support section. But generally, if I have a new pharmaceutical or a pharmaceutical is taken off the market, I can delete it or I can add it, and it's really very easy to do.
How about patient education? Can you integrate that into your workflow?
I've already integrated it in the workflow, and in fact the tables, diagnostic tables, actually come up when you hit, for example, asthma. The menu that comes up, or the following that diagnosis, is patient education, discussion of asthma medications, and then I can go into Dynamad, which is a decision support tool, right from the Encounter Pro screen, and scroll down to patient education and print out something for the patient.
And does that save you any time?
Oh, it saves me a great deal of time. For one, it's alphabetized, so I don't have to look for anything. I just hit, A, and go right down to asthma, and there it is. Yeah.
Afterwards, there were about 20 questioners. About 10 people came up and just kind of surrounded you for about half an hour.
Right.
And I didn't write down those questions, but what I heard was the major concerns of these physicians had to do with three things: ROI, patient satisfaction, and physician lifestyle, as in getting home to see the family.
Right.
Could you just, give me some of your philosophy?
Well, I tried to explain the return on investment with a system that has workflow. It's much faster because all the visits are coded. The level of the visit is automated, so you don't have to worry about that. But you can change the level if you've done other things that weren't captured. The charting is complete as soon as you finish the visit. In other words, when I walk out of the exam room, I'm done. I don't have to come back and chart after hours, which so many paper-based and probably electronically based systems will cause physicians to do. So it's really helped my lifestyle. I mean, I'm working 3.5 days a week now. I used to work 7 days a week, and so it's really made life much easier. And too, the staff loves it.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalez.
You're welcome.